Athena, the former Ember Moon, made an appearance on the NBC Sports Boston show this week. I don't know if it was a radio show or a podcast or what exactly they were doing there. But she was on there talking all things AEW, a little bit of dishing on the WWE. But it was this particular clip that made a lot of news this week, where she was asked about who she thinks started this whole women's revolution thing. You know, what was the real catalyst for the women's revolution? Check out this clip with Athena's thoughts, and then I'm going to catch you on the flip side with my own thoughts.
One person who recently announced they were also going to be done with WWE, Paige, her contract ends July 7th, and she said she eventually could participate in wrestling because it seems like everyone who's injured eventually comes back because of just time heals all. Is that someone you'd love to see join up with you in AEW?
Absolutely. Like I tell people all the time, it's like everyone says the women's evolution started with the Bellas. No. I highly disagree. It started with Paige and Emma.
Yes, thank you. Thank
Paige
you.
Paige and Emma, you know, or Tenille and Saraya, whatever name you want to call them, it started with them. That was the first like mainstream women's match that got time, that made people like want more.
Yeah, you could certainly make a compelling case for Paige and Emma. Look, they had that match in NXT that really put them on the map. You know, far before there was the Bayley and the Sasha match, Emma and Paige had a hell of a match in NXT where they really went at it, and it put both of them on the map. Both of them got a lot of respect for that, and really got a lot of eyeballs. And that certainly could be considered the start of the women's evolution, the women's revolution, whatever you want to call it. But you could go back even further than that. I honestly would put a lot of weight on Trish and Lita. Both of them were divas. Both of them did the bra and panties matches. So they weren't quite out of the woods from that to be considered, you know, taken seriously as professional wrestlers like the women's revolution certainly did, where women today are treated as equals as the men for the most part. Not always. They still don't always get the most time or the most effort put into their storylines, but they've had main events at WrestleMania and stuff now. And really, like, I don't think that those were necessarily all, like, you know, just token charity main events either, you know, to show how woke and progressive they are. I think, you know, in the case of like a Ronda Rousey and a Charlotte and a Sasha, these women have earned WrestleMania main events. Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, these women earn their main event spots. So props to them. But years and years and years ago on Monday Night Raw, Trish Stratus and Lita main evented a Monday Night Raw, and they had a fucking match, a knockdown drag out match, like the best match that a Lita and a Trish at that time could have possibly put on. They really showed one, that they could work, and two, that they wanted to work and that they could bust their ass, and three, that they could be main eventers, that they could put on as good of a show and be as entertaining and deserve as big of a spotlight as any of the men did. They really put themselves on the map on that match. You know, they had a huge feud, they had a ton of matches, but that one in particular was really special in a lot of ways. It was groundbreaking and historical as well. Trish Stratus, Lita, main event, Monday Night Raw. I don't remember when it was exactly. I think it was probably the early 2000s. I don't think it was in the late 90s quite yet. I think it had gotten into probably like 2001, 2002-ish. But they tore it up, and they deserve it. Are they the best women's wrestlers of all time? No. But when you're really looking at when did this turn happen to where women wrestlers were starting to be taken seriously again? Because they were in the past. You know, the Fabulous Moolah era, you know, Sensational Sherry when she was a wrestler, Sherry Martel. They were, Medusa was certainly taken seriously, Bull Nakano. These women weren't fucking divas, you know, they were taken very seriously. But somewhere along the way, through the Attitude Era, where it became the bra and panty era, Women's wrestling was just shat on. It was Sable, and it was puppies, and it was a bunch of bullshit. Bra and panties matches. And I think Trish and Lita were the first two women to really like step outside that bra and panty box and really like show what women can do, or what they can be, or at least that they deserve the opportunity to try, you know. So they were trendsetters and groundbreaking performers in their day because of that. Moving forward, certainly the TNA Knockouts division deserves a lot of credit too. TNA Knockouts division was highly underrated because TNA, right? Nobody watches TNA. Nobody cares about TNA. So naturally, nobody's going to notice the Knockouts division or have it on their radar. But when you got Gail Kim out there, Tara was doing great work. Even the Beautiful People, in my opinion, even though they were like divas, I feel like they were still given proper spotlight. They were a feature on the card. They could have been main eventers in that time. Maybe they were even. I might have missed that show or whatever. But the Beautiful People was a major act in TNA. And Gail Kim was out there carrying the torch for the workers, and I think Jazz was in TNA for a certain extent during that time too. I'm sure I'm missing some too, but just Madison Rain did a lot of good. She was a good worker. I'm probably forgetting more, but definitely just props to the whole TNA Knockouts division. I think, in the time that Mickie James, I think, had an early run there too, prior to her run that's there now. I think she was there before, contributing to the Knockouts division. So the Knockouts, Gail Kim, deserve a lot of props in this whole women's revolution as well. I want to give a little bit of honorable mention to Michelle McCool. I think Michelle McCool in the Divas era, to me, seemed more legit. And I'm not even saying she was a great worker, but I took her seriously. I didn't look at her as a bra and panties or a diva or anything like that. She wasn't, she looked like the kind of chick that would beat your ass if you had something to say. And she played the mean girl part well, with Lay Cool. And I don't think she was groundbreaking in any way, but I think, she at least deserves a little bit of honorable mention of being another brick in that path to the evolution. AJ Lee. AJ Lee deserves so much credit, AJ Lee, when she came in, she was like the anti-diva. Not in the way that Paige was. Paige was the anti-diva. That was kind of her gimmick and everything. She was the goth chick and whatever, but she was still, sexy and cleavage and stuff like that. AJ was like the tomboy, she was just like the little sister type chick, and then she was the crazy chick and all of that. But I think AJ Lee, her character work, her promo work, in ring, she had plenty of talent too. I wouldn't say she was like the greatest worker of all time, but she definitely wasn't the shits. But her character and personality, and even when she moved into the role of like a general manager and she had the like business suit thing going on, she carried a certain respect to her. I really think AJ Lee did a whole lot for the women's division when she was there. The time that she put in and the work that she did was, if Michelle McCool was a brick in that path, I think AJ Lee was several bricks in that path. She really helped progress that timeline, I think, and move it away from the divas. Even though she was the divas champion, it was the divas era, I really think she had a significant role in moving it from the divas to the women's. She was many bricks in that path. The Bellas were mentioned in this interview. Somebody had said that the Bellas were or maybe it was the Bellas themselves claiming credit for that. I don't remember the catalyst for that. The Bellas were if I'm going to give Michelle McCool credit for being a brick in that path towards. I'll give the Bella twins a brick in that path too. They, look, they were part of that transition, so they certainly they contributed to it. And especially Brie, even more than Nikki, put a lot of work into being a better in-ring performer. They were definitely brought in because of their looks and the twin magic and all that. They were a John Laurinaitis hire. And he ended up with their mom, and who knows what's going on in that fucking perv's mind. But he brought them in for eye candy, but they were there. They worked. They progressively got better. They made an effort to get better, whether they did or not. Brie, I think, certainly achieved a better in-ring performance than Nikki did by the end. And that could be just by being married to Bryan Danielson. That'll do it, because Danielson can certainly be the guy to fucking teach you how to work, right? So I think that helped a lot and gave a lot of credibility to them. And you know what? Even for that, maybe they deserve 2 bricks in that path. But I don't think necessarily they were the contributing ultimate factor to that as much as just paving the way towards that. Ultimately, if I had to say for sure, I would say Trish and Lita were definitely the groundbreaking trendsetters, the people that got the ball rolling, that really significantly put a shift in it. Everybody else I talked about on the way up that path. But I think if you need to pinpoint who solidified it, and Paige and Emma, we already talked about, they were significant breaks in those paths. They were another huge jumps forward, even more than AJ Lee, I would say. Multiple bricks in that path, just because they were able to have such a great rivalry and feud. And Paige, when she came in as the anti-diva, I think a lot of people kind of forget that, because Paige has kind of just made her reputation of being kind of a whore and a Twitch gamer, and kind of a non-entity to a certain extent, a manager for a while. But when Paige came in from NXT, she was the NXT champion, I think, when she won the Divas title. She was called up to Raw the night after WrestleMania, and we were all there for it. We were hyped for it. If you were watching wrestling at that point, the crowd popped like a motherfucker for Paige. They were ready for Paige to make her debut on the main roster. And when she did, man, because she had done such great work in NXT with the likes of Emma, and I think, whoever else she was working with at the time, I don't remember exactly, but there were, Summer Rae, I think, was in the mix. But Paige, a significant bump in that. And, AJ Lee putting over Paige on that Monday Night Raw, it was AJ Lee that Paige won that title for. So, again, the two of them, just huge steps forward in the women's evolution. But what really solidified it, in my opinion, is the 4 horsewomen. I think that's undeniable at this point. I think when Sasha, Bayley, Becky, and Charlotte came along, they were game changers, because all 4 of them can work. All 4 of them are megastars. All 4 of them are main eventers. All 4 of them. There's not a weak link in the bunch. You can't look at those 4 and be like, yeah, but that one's just kind of tagged on because they're friends with her. You know what I mean? Like the 4 horsewomen, you got Ronda, who's great. And then you got fucking Shayna Baszler, who's great. And then Marina and the other chick, Jessamine, are kind of meh, right? So they're just kind of tag-alongs. There were no tag-alongs in the 4 horsewomen of professional wrestling, of NXT. When they came up, Bayley got left behind, but she kind of carried NXT on her back after the other 3 went up to the main roster, and she stayed behind for another year and a half before she got called up. These 4 women changed the game for professional wrestling. And that's when the actual women's evolution came about. All of these other characters played a role in that path to the top, and all of them deserve their credit, their flowers, their honorable mentions. All of them did great work. But it was the four horsewomen that changed the game for professional wrestling for women, and probably forever will, because at this point women's wrestling is taken seriously, and the problem with a lot of women's wrestlers is they're just no good, but the ones that are good, and that's where the women's wrestling division, that's why people like a Jim Cornette or whatever still sees as the women's matches a piss break. Why are the girls even on the card? A girls match. I don't think of it that way, but a lot of them still have a lot of catching up to do in the talent portion. But there's so much talent out there. Other than the four horsewomen, you got chicks out there like Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb and Chris Statlander and fucking Ruby Soho and Toni Storm and fucking Bianca Belair. Jesus Christ. All these women are going out there and just Rhea Ripley. The list goes on and on and on and on and on of the talent. Liv Morgan, I think, has she's progressed so much from when she started. She's really earned her keep in WWE at this point. Natty, of course, has always been a staple. Natty deserves a lot of honorable mentions behind the scenes, because we all know that she's just being a heart dungeon fucking princess, that she's tough as shit and can work. But she also holds that locker room together, still to this day. She's, she's queen bee for the ladies, I do believe, she's the mama bear for them, and that's why she's around. And, so she deserves a lot of credit too in all of this. So all of those women deserve all the credit, but this topic excited me because I think the history of women's wrestling is it's an interesting history. It's an important history, and I'm glad that we're in the direction that we're going, because when you get a good women's match out there, it's just as good as any men's match, if not better a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like I had said, these main events, these women main events, they're not charity cases. They are deserving of the main event. When Sasha and Bianca main evented WrestleMania, they fucking tore the house down. They did great. So props to the women's division and how far they've came along. And this was just something I was excited to talk about, so I wanted to bust it on you. And shout out to Athena for doing the interview. And go check it out. I did put the link in the description. And on to the next motherfucker. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.